Okay, Reid, welcome to Straight Talk.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for wearing your ball gown today.
Hey, straight talk. I'm no angel.
I like it. I love it. It's awesome. So you're a aerospace engineer,
Correct.
but probably better known, or maybe not better known, but soon to be better known as a, the word is pâtissier. Patisserie. Well, what's the French word for it?
Well, I think it's chef pâtissier.
Chef pâtissier.
But I wouldn't exactly call myself that. I spent a month in a boulangerie in Paris, which is certainly not long enough from a training perspective to be formally classified as that. I learnt just enough to give myself the confidence to come back and open a business that specialised in only croissants, which was also not nearly enough. But yeah, I think some people call me a pastry chef, but I would not call myself that.
You're definitely a founder.
Yes, definitely a founder.
You're a founder of a well-known business, which I know.
Don't tell me you've never had one, Mark.
I am right. I heard you because I've been down the other room and I just heard you trying to sort something out for Croissanterie Street. And my building is right across the road from there.
Perfect.
So my main office, our head office, where our staff are, not for this business, for another business, is in Chifley.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, so we got a floor at Chifley there. So, and of course, everyone in my building was extraordinarily excited when, and hopefully I pronounce the word right because I only know what to look at it from its spelling, but it's Luna.
Lune.
Lune.
So Luna is the Italian pronunciation
Right.
and Lune is the French pronunciation of the word moon.
Right. It's okay. It's the word moon. Stands
Yep.
for the word moon. We'll come back to that in a moment. But but it is a croissant shop, if I could say it in as plain as Aussie language.
I think that's perfect.
Croissant shop.
Oh, that's actually what I call it. Like I'm going down to the croissant shop. So
Yeah. And it's just around the corner, but it's pretty bloody good. I've had them and they're very good, and I've taken them home and I've actually lined up.
You've actually lined up.
I actually lined up.
I'm impressed.
Not right at the beginning. So when you first opened, there was like mental lines going right up into the new railway station there. I didn't do that. I waited till it started. Over time, it's dropped off a little bit. But if you go there at a busy time, you still get on a decent line.
Yep.
But I've worked out the times a day when it's not as busy, and there might only be 4 or 5 people in line, and then I can just jump in.
I think for your sake, I would not mention those times because they might not be so quiet after you talking about them publicly.
I'm not going to tell them. I'm not going to reveal my secrets. But I do really enjoy your exotic croissants.
Amazing. Thank you.
Exotic. But we'll talk about it a bit later because the first thing I want to talk to you about is Kate Reid, the aeronautical engineer. You know, in my business, I have to, if I just don't mind explaining this to you, I have a young guy. When you say young, he's probably 40-something, just had a kid.
Young, I like that. We'll go with that.
It's relative. It's age is a relative thing. So I found out about 3 years ago that he was formerly an aeronautical engineer.
Okay.
And he's from South Australia. And he would be my number one most successful mortgage broker in Australia by numbers of transactions, not because he's lending into South Australia. People borrow less money in South Australia, therefore he doesn't lend as much in terms of total volume, but in terms of numbers of transactions, he does more. And I once went to his office in South Australia, I should say, and I said to him, Andy, can you explain to me why you write so much business? I just wanted to know. He said, well, I used to be an aeronautical engineer. And he said to me, when I was doing that job, he said, I used to look around the people in the room with me, and they were all much older than me. And he said, I thought to myself, I don't want to be doing this when I'm 60 or 70 or whatever. Yeah. He said, I couldn't think of anything worse. So I decided to go into mortgage broking. He said, what I've done, he said, I've broken up the process and remapped it from the moment someone rings the phone to make an inquiry about a mortgage to the moment the mortgage settles. And so I've broken up into every single part. And I've now automated 90% of every one of those parts, and only 10% of it does it require a human. And as a result of that, I've been able to I can process a greater percentage of my inquiries because I've just got more hours to work with.
And I imagine also that small component that still requires the human element, he can put more effort into that one part so that people still feel like they're getting that human connection.
And that's the part he does personally.
Yeah, that's very smart.
And,
okay, that's my next career done.
So we then borrowed that. I said, well, can I borrow your process? My point being is this: aeronautical engineers generally, but aeronautical engineers are very good at steps
Yep.
in a process. And I want to talk to you a moment about, have you employed that engineering learning prowess skill into your business to make your business successful? Because your business is not just about cool, sexy looking croissants, which are exotic looking and having all the, like, very good on photos and stuff like that. But it's also about execution, about delivery. You got to get the shit out.
Yep.
And it's not shit, but you got to get these things out. You got to get it manufactured, made, available for a customer to buy. And I notice your whole shop is a process. It's a process going on. I can see it from the back. I'm intrigued about that. I will talk about that. But is the fact that you were an aeronautical engineer, did that affect you like it affected him? Like, he got bored off his head and had to do something different. Why did you go from aeronautical engineering into being a founder of a croissant business?
It's so funny. No one's ever put it to me quite like that. Did you get bored off your head? I think you've maybe just gotten right to the heart of it. When I was younger, my father, he loves cars. He loves motorsport, in particular, loves Formula One. And F1 for me was this perfect opportunity to get to spend time with my dad, one-on-one time, us hanging out, bonding over fast cars. But then I think
As a little girl.
From my earliest memories, I can remember sitting watching F1 races with him, the ones that travel around the world. We'd video them when I was really young, and then we'd wait till the Monday night and watch them together. And then when I got old enough, I was allowed to stay up late on a Sunday night. And then in 1996, the Grand Prix moved from Adelaide to Melbourne. And for the first time, I got to witness it in person. And it was that defining moment that made me think, I actually want my entire life to be about these cars.
How old were you then?
13.
No.
Yep. So
I just stop there. Okay, I can't imagine a 13-year-old girl. I can't imagine a 10-year-old girl, 6-year-old girl watching these cars race around the joint, especially if you're watching on television. Then at 13, saying, "This is where I want to be." That's amazing. That's pretty crazy.
I think I've always been someone that when I find the thing that I'm obsessed about or passionate about, I just lock onto it. And then everything in my life becomes about how to work towards that thing and achieve the goal. And experiencing the cars in person for the first time. I mean, I'm sure you've been to an F1 race before.
I've been to the Monte Carlo Grand Prix 4 times.
You've been to Monaco 4 times?
4 times in May. Or in those days.
Monaco's my favourite, and I've been 3 times. So it's unlike anything else, and especially Monaco. I mean, the cars really shouldn't be allowed to race around that circuit. It's, by today's modern circuit standards, it's dangerous.
Especially when it comes up the hill past the casino there.
Exactly. And then through the tunnel, you have an accident in that tunnel, you're done.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a spectacle. It feels like a feat of human engineering that is beyond what we could have ever imagined. These cars traveling so quickly on circuits that are narrow. I mean, 300 kilometers an hour. It's wild. And when you experience one in person, and when I was 13, it was the V10 still. And that's the sound of that car just rips through you.
Yeah.
It's like, and I remember it. I could put myself back on Brocky's Hill on that March day in 1996, and I can remember what it was like to still witness that. And for me, I thought that engineering Formula One cars would be the most exciting thing on the planet. Maybe working as an engineer at an automotive company like Ford or Holden back in the day, that wasn't for me. I knew that wasn't going to move at the pace that I wanted. But working in F1 sounded like you were working at the edge of technology, creating things that might one day cascade down into the automotive industry. I think Williams created active suspension, and now that's on every car that you buy these days, but that's started in Formula One. And I think because the turnover of the design is so fast, I imagine these groups of brilliant engineers working in a really collaborative environment with a lot of resource, a lot of money, the best equipment, wind tunnels, everything. The whole thing sounded just fabulous to me.
Did it sound glamorous? Is it glamorous, or is it more intellectually exciting?
So the only experience I'd had with Formula One was trackside as a little girl, because you can't get work experience in a Formula One team. So the only interaction I'd had was the glamorous side. I knew that engineering wasn't going to be trackside. I knew I was going to be based in a factory, but I imagined that being based in the factory would be some sort of extrapolation of what you saw on the track. I think not glamorous, but definitely highly engaging from a technical perspective.
Because the drivers are glamorous.
They are.
I mean, they really are. I mean, I was there in '86 when Ayrton Senna won in Monaco.
Oh my God, you saw Ayrton win in.
I tell you something. I had a bet on him. So I went to a Calcutta, and it's my first Calcutta I'd ever been to. I didn't go to the Calcutta, but I'm invested in a group of guys who went to the Calcutta in Monte Carlo. They're older guys. I didn't get invited because I was pretty young, but they asked me would I like to put $1,000 into the Calcutta. I didn't even know what a Calcutta was, but they explained what it was to me.
I don't know what it is.
Well,
what is a Calcutta?
Well, you go along to a night. It's like a big event, and syndicates of people can buy the driver. So
Huh.
you don't buy the driver. You can say, well, we as a syndicate will bid for that driver.
Like you bid on his success, essentially.
Yeah. So you bid for the person who's going to win the race. It's not like going to the TAB and putting $1,000 on Ayrton Senna, where everyone could do that. You actually buy it, and so you're the highest bidder buys Ayrton Senna. And I was part of the syndicate that they all had more money than me, but I was part of the
You're still
syndicate.
part of it.
I put $1,000 on it, and I got a very good return.
Well, $1,000 in 1986 was a
lot
fair
of
bit of money as well.
It was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And by the way, I didn't have to put it up front, which is great. I was punting that I was hoping he'd win, or I'd get second or third, at least I get some money back, and then I wouldn't have to pay. But he did win. But I'll never forget it. I'll never forget the glamour and excitement. And I was like 86, so we're talking 20, 40 years ago. I was 30. I was 29. So I mean, it was really exciting for me. Like,
And
it was
Ayrton
so
Senna, like he is not human.
he was a
I mean,
legend.
he was a god amongst men at that time in motor racing. I think he was a very spiritual man as well. And like the way he spoke about being in the car, it was almost like he levitated out of his body. And to watch him win a race in Monaco would have been my all-time dream.
It was amazing. It was
Yeah.
it was hot. The
Yeah.
weather was hot. The noise.
It's all the senses. You still remember
the
it.
senses.
Yeah.
I mean, I could smell.
The fuel and the rubber. And
you're right. The speed at which they got around this corner, like it was amazing. Like you would think to yourself, that's not possible. How could anyone sit behind a steering wheel and do that?
Yeah.
Like it
Exactly.
was crazy. So you're right. All the senses are sort of going crazy.
Well, I love hearing you describe it now, like almost 40 years later, and
Yeah.
you're remembering the smell
can
and the
smell it.
sound and everything. And that's how I feel about my first 1996 Grand Prix.
Yeah, so that's you're saying as a young girl, that was enough to sort of form, in your mind at least, an academic career or a career in terms of academia. So what you're going to study towards to end up going to do at university?
It was done and dusted that day. So I was a huge fan of Damon Hill, who raced for the Williams F1 team. And that year he won the World Championship. And for Christmas, Mum and Dad bought me a coffee table book celebrating his championship winning year. And years later, when I was moving to the UK to work for Williams, I pulled the book out of the shelf and a note fell out of the front. And I'd written a pledge to myself at that age,
My God.
saying that by the age of 25, I would be offered a job by the Williams F1 team. And I got it when I was 23. So literally that moment I experienced it, I was dead set that was going to be my thing. And I went along to the RMIT Career Day. I thought I'd study automotive engineering, but as you said earlier, it really is aerospace is the pinnacle. You know, if you can figure out how to get a rocket into space and land it on the moon, that's one of the most technically difficult things a problem to solve. So a lecturer at the RMIT Day said to me, look, how about you consider studying aerospace engineering, because what you want to get into is one of the hardest jobs in the world because there are so few jobs. You need to give yourself the best chance. So that's what set me down the trajectory of aerospace.
And when you went and did this at university, and what was the process of getting a job at Williams?
That's such a good question. I think a lot of people out there, especially with the new interest in F1 due to Drive to Survive, I get asked so often, so how should I get a job in Formula One? Literally, you just have to do everything in your power to make you stand out more than the other thousands and thousands of people that want that job. I mean, if you think about it, in F1, there was maybe 15 aerodynamicists at Williams, and there are at the moment 10 teams on the grid. So you're looking at 150 jobs in the world to be an aerodynamicist for an F1 team. And there are hundreds of thousands of aerospace engineers out there, and many of them probably who have that dream. So you need to be loud. You need to get experience wherever you can. Like during university, I volunteered at a Formula 3 team based in Melbourne, and that was tough. Like, I'd come from an all-girls school, an all-girls private school in Melbourne. And then when I started studying aerospace engineering, I was one of 8 girls in a course of 120 guys. So I went from all girls to all guys. And then when I showed up at this F3 team asking to volunteer, these mechanics were like old school rough as guts. And they just saw this like wet behind the ears, private school educated girls studying aerospace engineering, and like they literally ate me alive.
Did you go get the box of hammers and all that sort of stuff?
Oh, like they
box of sparks, whatever.
like I think they like they bullied me.
Yeah.
And they teased me and ribbed me, but I didn't care because I knew that being around them, and I think that this made me a bit more thick-skinned as well. I knew that being around them simply by osmosis, if I just watched what they did and listened to their conversation, I would learn. And years later, when I got the job at Williams, I was living with one of the race mechanics. And one night I was speaking to him
From
about...
Williams or?
Yeah, he was my housemate. And I was telling him about this time that I volunteered with the F3 team, and he said, you don't know how invaluable even just being around those mechanics would be, because if you design a component of a car theoretically as an engineer, but in F1 it takes you half an hour to change the part, it's completely useless from a practical perspective. Like in a race engineering moment, you have to be able to change that part in 10 seconds or you've lost the race. And he said, like, they taught me how to break down a gearbox and change suspension components. And I learnt so much practical hands-on stuff from them that I then took into my engineering career. But yeah, I think that was one of the examples of me maybe trying to set myself apart from everyone else who wanted that
And telling
job.
everyone about it, though, because you have to talk about it. There's
You have to talk about it.
And be prepared to prosecute it hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
But how does it? I mean, that'd be fairly daunting. So, Williams is in the UK.
Yeah.
I don't know which part of the UK, but London or somewhere. I don't know
It's
where
southwest of London, just near Oxford.
Okay, so
which is, I think it's called the Motorsport Valley. There's a lot of F1 teams based there.
So, you're here applying for the job.
Yep.
So you're.
I'm writing off to every single F1 team, and then I started to go down the list. Like, okay, if I can't get a job in F1, maybe I'll start in F2 or F3, or A1 was big at the time. I wrote to Le Mans teams, rally teams. I just wanted to get my foot in the door. I mean, if you owned a motorsport team back in the mid-2000s, you probably got a letter from me. And I got a lot of silence and a couple of rejection letters. But then one day I got an email from Williams, from the team that was my dream team to work for. And I mean, I think this goes against my scientific engineering brain, but I am a bit of a believer in fate. And like for the one team to actually reply to me to be the one that I'd written that note about, saying you're going to get a job with them.
Did you tell them that?
Yeah.
In your application?
Actually, no, not in my application.
But down the
Maybe
track.
that would have been a good idea.
Yeah,
Send them a copy of the
tell
pledge.
me that for sure. Send a photo of it.
Well, they sent me an email saying we're actually recruiting for junior aerodynamicists and we'd like to interview you. So that was like, that's all I needed. I think I'm pretty compelling in an interview perspective. Like once you get your foot in the door, you can really let your personality and your passion shine. And I knew that if I could just get my foot in the door and be interviewed by a team, I mean, I had the aerospace engineering degree like everyone else. I'm sure other people had experience working and volunteering with other teams. I'd done my thesis on the study of the rear wing of an F1 car. I'd tried to do all the right things. But once they talked to me, I was pretty sure I could convince them to hire me, and they did.
Have you always been like that, though?
Yeah.
In terms of personality?
Yes.
Yeah. Is that a confidence thing, or is that a learnt behaviour that gives you success and reward?
Ooh. It's definitely not a confidence thing. I think I would probably say that I've lived most of my life feeling not confident. Maybe it's I feel like I have something to prove.
Is it a performance then?
You
turn it on?
I think so. Gosh, these are good questions. To backtrack right to when I was an infant, I was diagnosed with very severe asthma when I was 18 months old. And I've spoken to many psychologists over the years, and there's some belief that as a very young child, not understanding why you're so unwell and having to fight for your life, that builds a level of, resilience and determination in a kid from an early age. So I think maybe that had something to do with me feeling like I kind of had to fight for my life all the time. I think I'm going to think about that more.
Yeah, because I mean,
Yeah.
some people think that, for example, someone like me, they think, oh, Mark's a natural interviewer, but I am actually, it's a performance for me. But I know how to perform.
Yep.
But it's something I've learned. I've learned how to do it.
Yep.
It's not natural for me. It's not natural for me.
Really?
Conversely, I'm socially awkward. I'm hopeless.
Okay.
So
I would not have guessed that.
But put me in the room with the cameras and the lights, and
You can turn it on.
I've learned how to turn it on.
Yeah, okay.
Over time, and I've done 1,200 episodes. So, but in the beginning wasn't anywhere near. Well, perhaps not as good.
Someone sat here 1,200 times opposite you.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We do a lot of podcasts in this joint. So I'd imagine then, once you get as you said, you got your foot in the door, you're going to nail it. You'll convince them, whether it's a performance or if it's learned behaviour or it's natural, it doesn't really matter. And I can sense that. And what do you think, though, is the element that gets you over the line? Is it your knowledge of the topic? Is it your passion for the topic? Is it your sort of sense of? I take passion. I don't believe in passion. I believe in obsession. There's no point in being passionate. Lots of people are passionate about things, but it doesn't lead to success. You got to obsess
Actually,
about.
I agree with that.
Yeah, it's because of bullshit. Otherwise, I'm really passionate.
Yeah, passionate's a word that's thrown around a lot, but if you're obsessed with something, it's almost like you're admitting that you get consumed by it. It's got a slight negative connotation, but like if you say you're obsessed with something, it's like I'm admitting I'm all in for this thing.
Yeah, I'm all in. That's the word,
Yeah.
all in. All the words, all in. And is it that? Do you think it's convinced them? Do they read that? Did they read that in you when the Williams people interviewed you?
I've thought about this moment a lot. I was told when I started at Williams that every week 3,000 CVs land on the desk.
Whoa.
Which is huge. So what made, first of all, mine stand out? And I think being a girl would have made me stand out because I was the only female in the entire company working in a technical capacity. And it was a company
Williams?
at a company of 500 people.
Oh, my God.
There were women working in marketing, hospitality, human resources, more of the support type roles. But from a technical perspective, I was the only female, and I was the only female in the entire aerodynamics facility, the building. So maybe being a girl made me stand out from the 3,000 other people that had sent their resumes in. In the interview and knowing that I'd get to this point, I can be charismatic. I can show my obsession and my dedication to something. And I had the backup to speak to, like the volunteering and everything else that I'd done. But it was interesting when I got into the office, the one thing that was immediately obvious to me was I was the loudest person in the office. And I don't mean
to volume sense.
No, I mean as in a communication sense. Almost everybody else in that office was pretty much a head down, work quietly, stare at your computer for 16 hours.
Please help me out here, Kate. Why is it engineers across the world like that? Doesn't mean was it aeronautical or medical engineering or any other type of engineering? I like that. What is that? Well, I mean, what's your observation? I'm not an engineer, but I've certainly seen it.
I think they don't become that when they become an engineer. I think that personality trait is attracted to engineering because it requires very quiet, focused work, long hours in front of a computer without much human interaction. And that was essentially my undoing.
Would you say they're not collegiate? But not naturally collegiate. They just open up a little cell and they're in there.
Yeah, actually. Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I worked for 2 Formula One teams in the end. I moved from Williams to what's now the Aston Martin team, but it was called Spiker when I worked for them. And my observation was instead of working together as a team, because both the teams weren't performing well at the time.
Even though they call themselves teams.
Yeah, ironically. Because they weren't performing well at the time, there was a lot of pressure on all of us to make the car better for it to perform. And it became kind of a competition for who could prove that they were the most dedicated to the company. So instead of us all coming together and really collectively solving this problem, you'd look around the office and you'd be like, if I wait longer than him and him and him, I'll look like I'm more dedicated to solving this problem. And we became competitive amongst ourselves rather than competitive together against the other teams. And no one in a leadership role ever really swooped that up and dealt with it and acknowledged that it was creating a negative culture in the office.
Because we're going to talk about Lune in a moment, or Lune. I like the Italian version, but anyway. But like, I'm just wondering if you've taken any of those experiences out and put it into your own business. So, I mean, apart from coming up with a great idea, execution is what you're talking about when it comes to teams. Executing it to be the best. But that does take teamwork, and everybody's got to be on the same page. You've got to have the same architecture, and sure, everybody have a different part or different role, but you've got to be collegiate to make it happen.
I think also an experience that I had in both teams was that I came in at an entry level. I mean, even though I was one of 15 aerodynamicists at Williams, I was classified as a junior aerodynamicist. And I had ideas. I mean, I was obviously brand new to that level of the industry, but no matter how old we are or what experience we have, if we've got an idea, if that's not heard, that might be shockingly the one idea that makes the car perform better. But as a junior aerodynamicist, I wasn't allowed to have ideas.
What did you do? Did you then, notwithstanding that, did you bug, your direct report and say, look, I just thought I worked on this the other night and I don't know what
I didn't have time to.
You're so flat out.
Like my role was modeling, like a 3D computer-aided design, modeling components that my senior aerodynamicist believed we should be testing. And that probably came down from the chief aerodynamicist, and maybe that was from the technical director. But whatever that cascade of like level of management was, I would spend up to 16 hours a day just trying to keep up with modeling the components that someone had told me I should model. There was only one person when I was working at Williams, a guy called Frank Durney, who almost started at Williams at the same time that Sir Frank founded the team. So it was the two Franks. Frank Durney is a mastermind he's a legend in Formula One from a technical perspective. Like, he was one of the people that introduced wind tunnel testing to Formula One. But by the time I was working at Williams, he'd been reintroduced into the team more as a role model and someone that would walk around the offices and maybe he was the only person that was trying to make the team more collegiate. And I'd love it when he came into the office because he actually wanted to have a qualitative chat about what was going on. And he'd come into our little cubicle and he believed, and I actually think it's the Renault team have committed to, Alpine, have done it this year, which is bold, and it'd be challenging from a financial perspective. But Frank Durney believed that in 2006, Williams should just scrap the entire season because we weren't going to get enough better to be competitive. He thought we should scrap the entire season and then put all the team's effort on designing the 2007 car to have a championship winning car. And that probably would have worked. But how do you explain that to all the sponsors on the 2006 car?
Well, they won't get their name on the car, so...
Yeah, they don't want to be at the back of the grid knowing that everyone at Williams has absolutely given up on the car that their name is on for it to sit at the back of the grid. But yeah, Frank Durney had maybe more of a nebulous view on we need to improve this car and the way that we're doing it right now, not operating together as a team and just chipping away at little things that may or may not help. It's not really getting us anywhere.
If you were to look back on that period, in your, let's call it your career period or growth period, what are some of the things you learned from that you've taken into your new business?
So much. I think we haven't really gotten into it, but staying in Formula One became incredibly bad for my mental health and then my health.
Why?
I do really, to come back to your question about how I've employed my learnings from F1 in Lune.
When we talk about Lune a bit more, just talk about what was happening there.
Yeah, perfect. So I was at Williams for about a year, and pretty early on,
So what age are we now?
23.
23, right?
Yeah. Pretty early on, I acknowledged that, to quote you, I was bored out of my mind. It was so unstimulating in a way that I was so shocked that, like, I assumed that it was going to be, as I said, this like brilliant collaborative group of minds solving big problems in an exciting way with a big budget. And like that could have been really exciting. And maybe the teams that were winning, Renault was winning that year. And because they were the leading team with all the exciting ideas, it might have been a different experience if I'd ended up in that team. But I didn't. And that, like, Williams wasn't a bad company to work for. I just arrived at the team at a time where it really didn't suit my personality, and I needed something that stimulated me more. And I was sitting at a computer without engagement with my brilliant teammates, solving big problems in a really fun and exciting way. I was staring at a computer screen for 16 hours a day, designing ideas that weren't my ideas. And another team approached me and tried to headhunt me, and I ended up confiding in one of my teammates. And
At Williams?
Yes, he'd worked for this other team at the start of his career. And he said, look, the experience I had there as a junior aerodynamicist, they're a smaller team with lesser budget, so you're responsible for a bigger area of things. And it might be good for you from a learning perspective. But by the time I got to that team, they were performing even worse than Williams, and the culture in the office was shocking. And it was really at that point where, something that I'd been working toward at least since 13, if not having that obsession for earlier than that, I'd defined myself by Formula One. Like, that was my identity. And I wanted to be the first female technical director of an F1 team. And I'd planned out my entire career and my retirement, and I was going to be this incredible person to change Formula One. And it wasn't working out like that.
So you set yourself up for disappointment.
100%. That sums it up. So I've defined myself. I've moved myself to the other side of the world, away from the country I love, the city I love, my family, my friends, and I'm in a job.
Ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah. And I'm in a job that ultimately I start to hate. But letting go of that means letting go of the thing that defines me and letting go of my purpose for living.
Full conflict.
So I stick it out and I stick it out, and then I end up moving into a Formula One marketing role, which was kind of like my last gasp, like my last hope in this. And by then, depression had already sunk in, and anxiety. I was having panic attacks, but neither of them were diagnosed, and I just carried on. And then eventually and I think this goes back to obsession rather than passion, which is another example of how I'm an obsessive person. Having all of these big things out of control in my life, automatically I started to grab for the things that I could control in my life, and that's what I ate and how much exercise I did. And so the depression and anxiety morphed into anorexia, and I became incredibly unwell.
So, and in terms of food and training, overtrain, overeat, or overtrain, undereat.
Oh, like, you're talking to an aerospace engineer. I had crazy spreadsheets. I would weigh every morsel of food that I ate. I had websites that I'd access to then calculate how many calories. I'd record that. I'd then record, how much exercise I'd done. I'd calculate, if I'm running at this pace, how many calories will that burn? I made sure that every day I had a deficit. I was essentially tracking my body like you would look at the data on a Formula One car, and I was getting results because calorie deficit.
You're getting rewards.
Well,
The results rewards you. So you go, so I got something good out of that. Without even knowing about it.
Yeah. And like, a result is, my goal for today is to be lighter on the scales tomorrow. And so if I do X, Y, and Z, that should happen. The thing about anorexia is, and I guess our bodies, like, you can't account for things like water retention or a whole lot, like, with females, your cycle, like a whole lot of
stuff
things
you can't see.
And so sometimes you'd do exactly what you did the day before, and you'd stand on the scales and you were a bit heavier. But because I'd descended below a weight where really you can think rationally. And also I had depression and anxiety. Seeing that number higher to my engineering mind made no sense.
Failure.
And it would send me into a tailspin of like panic and it was terrible.
I don't understand to that extent, but I do understand obsession. You're talking to a person who still plots on a spreadsheet what time the sun doesn't rise, but let's call it sunrise. Where it's on the horizon halfway between half it was below
Do
the
you
horizon.
know what
It still does that. I still do it. I don't do sunrise and sunset anymore. I just do sunrise.
I love that.
But now you can AI can do it for me.
So I have to tell you,
I used to spreadsheet that stuff.
So in my brand new memoir, Destination Moon, I write when I'm in Paris about the light in Paris being
Unbelievable.
different. And because I was, by this stage, pursuing my baking career, I was working at a boulangerie and I would walk to work as the sun was rising. And as I was writing Destination
Which
Moon...
is that day, every day changes, by the way.
Yes,
it's a
exactly.
35-second change each day, but it doesn't matter. Go on.
So I wanted to know it's something like 18 degrees when the sun reaches like 18 degrees above the horizon is classified exact sunrise.
As opposed to first light. There's a big difference. But
yeah. So I actually remember I was sitting in my little village in Tuscany writing the book. I'm like, I want to know what the exact degree of sunrise is. So I love the fact that you plot that.
I still do
day.
it.
I love that.
But I use AI now.
Okay.
Because it's much easier than it was. Just I don't have to go and actually put it on a spreadsheet. And I actually do things to that rhythm.
What things do you do to that rhythm?
Well, I exercise, wake and exercise.
Uh-huh.
So like daylight saving fucks me up a bit.
Yep.
So this week I'm a little bit all over the shop, but because we're recording this during the daylight saving week, first week of daylight saving. But I try to expose myself to the first light because the distribution of light.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly one particular part of the light, which is not visible to the eye, but it's 650 nanometers, which is the back part of your eyes, the retina, actually converts that light energy, those photons, into a certain chemical in your body, and it gives you a certain feeling. And it's very good for your health, mental health especially.
I've been to Gwingana on the Gold Coast, and every morning you go out in time for sunrise so your eyes can look unfiltered at the sun because they never described that to me, but it's a lovely feeling.
It's about the distribution of light.
Yeah.
So the ultraviolet rays, which sit down the other end of the spectrum compared to the red rays, which are down the other end, the shorter end of the spectrum.
So these are longer rays.
So they're shorter. So there's 650 nanometers, which is 650 billionth of a meter. It's not very big, but the ultraviolet rays are much longer. They're 1200. They're much more distributed at that time of day because of the axis of the Earth, the tilt of the Earth. And it's a bit like if I shine a torch on water, it spreads quite broadly, and that's what happens at not a first light at sunrise. I don't understand why they call it sunrise because the sun never rises, by the way. But anyway.
I have the most random thing to tell you, but I think you'll be interested in this.
But this is an obsession, by the way.
Yeah,
this is an obsession.
Another thing that I write about is for 3 years in a row, I was part of the World Solar Challenge. And it wasn't with the Australian team. The Dutch team from TU Delft reached out to ask me to be on their support crew. And the first year that I was on the support crew, they won. So it's a race that traverses Australia from Darwin to Adelaide. And they smashed the record. But they had redesigned solar cells. So classically, solar cells are pyramid shaped. And to get the maximum energy from the sun had to be hitting it perpendicular to the surface of the pyramid.
Yep.
And they designed curved solar cells. So no matter what angle the ray of light was hitting
always perpendicular. There was always a part that's perpendicular.
Yep. Very clever.
Yeah, that's interesting. So why didn't they think about doing one that elevated or changed? Maybe because it uses power to do that. But anyway, don't worry. So let us just move. But you.
Sorry, that was such a deviation.
You're obsessed. Yeah, right.
Yep.
So, and the obsession with your weight. And was it about look or was it just
No,
about the measurement?
it was about the number.
The measurement.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's very much an engineering trait, by the way. You know, because engineering is very much about measurement.
Yep.
And geometry, but measurement and geometry, they sort of go together. But
it's about measurable progress,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is one of my favorite things. Like the idea of getting even 1% better every day. If you're like edging towards perfection while you'll never get there,
Yep.
it's still measurable progress.
Yeah.
And an eating disorder tracks measurable progress.
Yeah, and so how did you get out of that disorder? So what did you do?
So
Did you come home and say, "Mum, Dad"?
No, I got so sick in the UK that
What's the sickness like? What happens? I mean, obviously you lose a lot of weight, but what is the sickness? What are the symptoms?
So first of all, anorexia has the highest mortality rate of any mental illness. It's not only like as you're starving your body, you're obviously restricting nutrients to all your internal main organs, but then the flip side of that is suicide, and it's a lesser known thing that anorexia is the worst of the mental illnesses from that perspective. Symptoms are
You feel sick or no energy?
no energy, very sleepy, irritable mood, like huge mood swings, forgetful, foggy. From a physical perspective, like it was the winter in the UK when it all started, and I just stopped having feeling in my extremities, my hands and feet. My blood pressure went very low, my pulse went very low. My hair started to thin out. When I got really, really bad, my skin got bad. And I spoke to my doctor about that, and she said, the only job your skin needs to do right now is to hold everything together. It doesn't need to look good. So it's just using the nutrients to like actually stay together. Is it insidious? Is that the right
Insidious.
word? It's an insidious disease. And all of this started to happen to me when I was in the UK.
How old are you now? 30 then?
No, I'd been in the UK for about 3 years, so 26, 27.
Late 20s, yeah.
It got to the point where my dad actually flew to the UK and brought me home. And I think we all first thought that, get me home, I didn't think this, I have to be clear. I think everyone thought we'd get home.
Feed her up
And then she'll be okay. But food is only a symptom. The issue is why did you start doing this? And I think I understood that like F1 had occupied this area of my brain that requires obsession. And then when I let go of that, it allowed the eating disorder to just take over my brain. And until I found another obsession to take its place, I was probably going to die. I made this realization yesterday, actually, that it was a ticking time bomb. Like I needed to find, I was going to keep losing weight and, I did have moments where I had suicidal thoughts. I've obviously never acted on it, but, my bone density wasn't very good. Something was going to go wrong. So I needed to find something before anorexia 1. But the ironic thing...
You knew that?
I knew that.
Yep.
Maybe subconsciously, I knew that I was desperately seeking a new passion, because it's not a good feeling to be caught up in an eating disorder. It's, it felt good to be working towards this thing with Formula One. And although I was trapped in the eating disorder and controlled by it, it didn't make me feel happy or good. But the ironic thing about an eating disorder is that all you can think about all day is food, because you're starving your body. And so every part of your body is sending signals to your brain telling you to fuel it. And you don't dream about boring food or like healthy food. You dream about the thing that you really, really love eating. And my whole life, I've really loved baked goods. So...
As in bread and croissants and...
As in all of it, cakes, scones, biscuits. Like Mum was a great baker when I was growing up, and we'd come home from school and she'd always make something beautiful for afternoon tea.
You're killing me, I'm starving at the moment.
I'm actually pretty hungry too.
We just have to go to Castlereagh Street, not far from here.
Yeah, perfect. So, anyway, I think it sort of started this obsession with baking myself when I was still living in the UK, desperately unhappy at work. And I'd come home from a really long day at work and I would, bake a brownie or a cake. And it's when you think about baking compared to cooking, baking is very scientific. You know, you have to weigh out your ingredients perfectly, and then you have to follow a method to the letter about how you incorporate the ingredients. And it relies on, you know, temperature in an oven and airflow.
Time.
Exactly. And so for me, I'd get home and I could live vicariously through the process of baking without eating it. And then I'd take it into work the following day and we'd, you know, pause mid-morning and everyone would gather around and we'd cut it up and I wouldn't eat it, but I would live vicariously through seeing how happy it made everyone else. And so I came back to Australia like a twig, but with this dream that maybe I wanted to pursue baking as a career.
You already had that thought.
Yeah. So the day I landed back in Australia at like so unwell, I had an interview with a bakery in Melbourne to just work as a counter hand. Like I'd gone from being an aerospace engineer at a Formula One team to like serving people at a local bakery in Melbourne. And
how long did it take you before you worked out, you started thinking to yourself, I can change this process?
I can change the anorexia.
No, I can change the process of the bakery.
Oh, with croissants.
Well, whatever you were doing
okay.
and working in this bakery, did you, because I know people like similar to yourself.
Mark, I'm going to send you a copy of my book after
They
this.
cannot wait to change the process and improve it.
Yeah, okay.
Faster, more efficient, more output, more productivity, better taste, whatever.
So I was 40 kilos at this point.
That's light.
I'm assuming you understand BMI. My BMI was like 13.
Wow.
For such an intelligent person, like I would cross roads and like not even look left or right. I would just Dad said there were several times where you nearly just got cleaned up by a car. It would terrify him when I'd go out for a walk. I don't think I was thinking about improving the process at this stage yet. This was like ground zero recovery.
So the bottom, about as low as you can get.
Yep. And it honestly, it got a bit worse before it started to get better. I think full recovery back to a healthy weight where I could operate in life again was probably about 5 years.
When you say operate, you mean function.
Yeah. And function in like a high performing way, because for me, there's no other way. So I'm going to tell you a quick story to explain to the point where I started to see opportunity for improvement in an existing industry. I'd borrowed this book from the library about Paris patisseries. Got it home.
Why Paris patisseries?
Well, I was baking. I'd talked myself into a job at this beautiful local cafe to do their baking every morning, but we were doing pretty simple stuff like biscuits and cakes. And while it was fun, I knew that my brain needed something more challenging to feel really fulfilled with what I was doing. And I was starting to research French pastry a bit more because it's highly technical. So I borrowed this book about French patisseries, got it home, sat on the floor, flicked the book open randomly, and there's this beautiful zoomed in double page photo of pain au chocolat stacked up on a counter. And I was so wowed and enamored by this photo that I walked back up to the shops where the library was, but into the flight centre, and I booked myself a ticket to Paris.
It sounds like you're going to the next version of Williams
I was.
Formula One.
But
in terms of patisseries.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. So I went to Paris, and on my last day in Paris, I went to the boulangerie where the photo had been taken, and it's a pastry wonderland. It's one of the most beautiful places in Paris, definitely one of the best croissants. I was hypnotized by the experience, and the following day I sent an email, like I did with the F1 teams. I sent an email to the owner of the boulangerie asking if he would take me on as an apprentice. Just so bold now thinking about it, like this, like.
But chance your hand.
Yeah, chance. Like if you don't ask, you don't get.
Totally.
So he replied to me within an hour and said,
whoa.
Yeah. He's like, I wouldn't normally, because you don't speak French, you have no experience. Like, I don't even know if you've got a visa, everything. But he said, for some reason, I can see the same passion and motivation in you that drives me. So yes, when would you like to start? So I get the Williams F1 version of the bakery offer. And a few months later, I moved back to Paris, and we initially agreed to do a 1-month stage, which would, I guess, assess my level of viability longer term in the business. And suddenly I find myself in the Formula One kitchen of the baking world. Like, this bakery was so highly technical. They had this huge marble bench on the first floor that was like chilled from beneath with the fridges. So the bench was already cool when you roll out the pastry. It had blast chillers and this like laminator that looked like the Ferrari of the laminator world. And it was amazing. And I get to work in this place and suddenly I'm making pastry that's so highly technical. It's 3 days to make it from start to finish. And now my weight's starting to come up a little bit. I'm starting to regain the ability of like rational and critical thought. And again, kind of like those mechanics with the Formula 3 team, I wasn't allowed to do a lot, but I was allowed to observe. And I watched Sebastian, the head chef, and I was thinking like, why did you do it like that? Because I think it could be better or more perfect or more accurate or faster if you did it like that. So this is where the critical thinking really starts to
The
come in.
engineer's thinking.
Yeah. So I came back to Australia. My money was running out. A stage is an unpaid internship and you can't really live in Paris with no money. And I came back to Melbourne with the view to maybe carrying on my education in croissants in a bakery in Melbourne. And so I started this obsessive tour around Melbourne's bakeries to try and find a croissant that was anywhere near as good as what we'd been making in Paris, and it just didn't exist. And so then I had this light bulb moment. Well, I know everything there is to know about croissants after my 1 month in Paris. So maybe I'll start the business. So Lune was born.
So, but what is it about? Like, I mean, you see all sorts. I've seen all sorts of croissants, and I do love croissants when I've had them in France. But I ordinarily wouldn't buy them here. But I have bought your ones.
Good
What is
answer.
it? What is it that makes a croissant really good?
Oh, I love that you asked that because I'm really onto my hot topic now. Uh, I feel like the first time I had a croissant in Paris, I had this experience and it formed the blueprint for me of what a truly exceptional croissant should be.
This is just a plain croissant, right?
This is just a traditional croissant.
Yeah, nothing on top like you guys do. Okay.
No, but like the traditional Lune croissant is my favorite anyway.
Right.
I think it's also the foundation of every product on our counter.
That's the OG.
The OG, yeah. So this first croissant I had in Paris, which wasn't actually from the place that I did the stage at, it was relatively fresh out of the oven. Like when I picked up the bag and they gave it to me, the bag was still warm. And then when I opened the bag, there was just this overwhelming scent of beautiful cultured butter, like butter like I'd never experienced with a croissant before. So the product was literally a celebration of the butter that it had been made with. And it was quite big, but the bag was really light. I'm like, this is a big pastry, but it feels quite light. And you take a bite into it and the outer layer shatters. And it's not tiny little flakes. It's like beautiful, big, curved shards of like crunchy, buttery pastry. But then the internals of it are so light that it's like butter air as well as layers. It's like more air than it is dough. And it's just this thing of beauty that like you finish it and you don't feel full, but you feel so perfectly satisfied by this perfect thing that you've eaten. That to me is a perfect croissant.
And when you say butter, and because it's funny, people talk to me. You just mentioning then the experience you had eating this croissant, and I admittedly we're all the same in terms of memory, especially when it comes to food. I remember once my family's Greek. Once I was in Greece, like a million years ago. I was 25, so that's how long ago it was. It was 45 years ago. So I was in, and they had a little bakery. Didn't make croissants, but they made
but Greek baked goods are
pastry.
amazing.
And it's on the island of Hydra, and which is very close to the mainland. And it's not there any the island's there, but the bakery's not there anymore because I tried it out. But I have the same memory. It was 6 a.m, going down to this thing that'd been baking since probably 2 a.m, and the thing was warm.
What was it?
It was a borgata, which is it was a savoury borgata. The borgata can be sweet or savoury, and they only in those days only bake them at a certain time of year, which is to celebrate the festival of Our Lady. It's in August, generally in August, and the borgata was I got a savoury one. It's sort of like a cheese, but a sweet cheese inside. I don't know what it's made from, but I have this memory, and it's about the taste, the smell of the bakery, the smell of the thing I bought, the weight of it also, and it was also the crunch. And it's interesting. You took me back to a time. I can remember the morning that I first tasted it, and therefore I went every single morning whilst I was on that island.
I
And
really want one of these things now. They sound amazing.
Bulgats, and you don't get them. You don't see, but a lot of people make them now all year round. But they're not made. It would have been some old artisan. The guy's probably dead by now, but it was some old artisan guy who was making these things. That imprinted something on my mind. Did it imprint something on your mind?
Yeah.
To such an extent that I must try to reproduce my own version of this.
Yes. And so I get back to Australia. I sign the lease on a tiny shop.
Already?
Well, no. So, I mean, I'm carrying on from the story earlier where I come back and I've done my tour around Melbourne, can't find a bakery, find a shop, sign the lease, think about a business name, Lune.
What was the fascination with Moon?
Oh, well, obviously my book's called Destination Moon. The first chapter details how even from a very, very young age, I've been obsessed with the moon. And when I was very bad with asthma when I was young, to get me to go to bed, the only way I would do it is if mum and dad took me outside to say goodnight to the moon.
Wow.
And like still to this day, if I'm out and I can see the moon at night, I'll like say goodnight to him. I think it's a him. I don't know.
And what do you call Lune?
So that's the friend that. Okay, so when I was working in Formula One, my boyfriend, who was also an aerodynamicist, we went for our 1-year anniversary to Bruges, which is the home of Tintin.
As in Belgium.
Yep. The comic.
And Tintin, it was a very famous, is it a German TV show, Tintin?
No, it's Belgian.
Belgian, is it? Yeah.
Yep. So they had this beautiful shop.
A very famous star on television, but it was a dog.
Yeah, Snowy. But then Tintin was Snowy's owner.
Oh, okay. And Tintin was the owner, right.
Yeah,
okay,
I think he was a bit of I don't know. I didn't fully follow it, but we went into the Tintin shop.
Right.
And right in the window, there was a poster, and it was a poster of a rocket about to take off from the desert, and all the scaffolding was around it. And Tintin and Snowy were in this Jeep bouncing towards it. And the title of the poster was Objective Lune, which in French translates to Destination Moon.
Right.
And I was so captivated.
Captivated.
I was so captivated by this poster that my boyfriend bought it for me and brought it home to England and had it framed. And by this stage, I'm already coming home from work and baking at night. And he'd been joking that I should open a cafe. And he said to me, if you ever open a cafe, you should call it Objective Lune. Now, Objective Lune's not particularly catchy, but Lune is. And then when I started to think about it, like Lune means moon in French, and croissants are crescent moon shaped.
They are.
And I studied aerospace engineering and fell in love with the early space race during my university years. And then thinking all the way back, for my whole life, I've had to say goodnight to the moon every night. And for me, and also croissants are French and Lune is a French word. And for me, it just felt like the business couldn't be called anything else.
It sounds comforting.
Yeah, it does. It's also a nice word to say.
It's quite comforting that the story that sits around it.
Yeah, I think I'm someone, and I'm only realizing this now, I really love a full circle moment. And for me, that like in that way you describe comforting, it feels like it ties back to everything. So yeah, for me, maybe it was that opportunity to bring all of these important things in my life together in one little business.
They're important emotions. And it's quite interesting for someone who's an engineer and who probably thinks in a engineering process. There's a lot of emotion around you. It may well have actually been responsible for you getting unwell, and but also maybe where you landed today may be responsible for getting you well.
Yeah, I think you've actually just summed up the core theme of my book. Well done.
Don't need to read it.
That's actually it. It's this idea that perfectionism and obsession, when applied for good, can have very powerful positive impact. But then on the flip side, when used in a negative way, can have a very detrimental impact.
But that's quite binary. So it's not maybe this or maybe that.
No, it's
that or that.
Yes,
it's one or the other. It's good or bad. It's like how you apply it. It's not there's nothing grey in there.
No. I'm probably not a grey area person.
It's very mathematical.
Yeah.
Like it's 0 or 1.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. very mathematical.
Yeah. So, I'm dying to know about, how'd you design, I can only tell you what I've seen. So the croissants you have in your store, probably most people have seen them, but they're all beautifully designed, and sort of quite exotic looking. Apart from the OG, the original one, the rest of them are sort of, and they just make you want to
Eat them.
I'll buy one of those, and I'll buy one of those, and I better try one of those, because I don't know what any of them taste like, but I can just looking at them, I'm thinking, well, that looks interesting, that looks interesting, that looks interesting. Where did the design process come from? What was that idea? What's that thinking?
The design process. I'm going to use an analogy. I don't know if you've been to our now what I would call the flagship store in Melbourne. It wasn't where I
No.
originally started Lune, but then to bring you up to speed quickly, after about a year and a half, my brother joined me in the business, and he's been instrumental in helping me grow it. So we outgrew the initial space very quickly, and then we moved into this 400 square meter turn of the century warehouse, and we built a bakery that, like, it was unlike any bakery on earth. We put a huge glass cube right in the center of it, and we climate controlled it, and that became the raw pastry kitchen where we made the raw croissant pastry, which meant that chefs working in the kitchen could be in the heart of the customer area and enjoy the customers eating the pastries and enjoying them. And it also meant that the customers could watch how much care and attention and detail was being put into the pastries. Like, when I first started Lune, some people would say to me, oh, so do you just get up in the morning and whip up a batch of croissants? I'm like, no, I started them 3 days ago. But for me and for Cam, designing Lune like this was the opportunity to showcase just how difficult it is to make a croissant well. So when we...
Or properly.
Properly, yeah. Thank you. So when we were presented with this empty 100-year-old factory, we could have thought about it from a beautiful design perspective, or we could have thought about it from how can we engineer this space to best serve the people in it to make the croissants the best that they can.
But also showcase it at the same time.
Well...
Did you showcase it?
Yeah, but we weren't really thinking about it like that. We were thinking about, Cam and I were the ones making the croissants at the time, and we didn't want to be stuck in a room without windows out the back. We kind of wanted to be in the thick of it. And so for us, we kind of designed the room, the glass climate-controlled room for ourselves, and then had this moment a little bit later being like, that's going to be really cool for people to be able to watch it.
Totally. Immersive.
But then when we thought about the layout of this space, we didn't need 400 square meters to make croissants. We went from 20 square meters to 400. So it was excessive. But it gave us this open plan to design the perfect flow for making croissant pastry. So we thought about every single step in that 3-day process.
Engineered.
Yeah, and how the journey that the pastry moves from the dough being made to the croissants finally being pulled out of the oven. And what is that perfect journey for the pastry and also the people that work with it? And, we didn't have a huge amount of money. So we were like, okay, we've got this beautiful old warehouse. We need to maximize our spend on bakery equipment. So we really designed that space for perfect function. But when you watch people working in a space that was designed with them in mind and their ease of work and their efficiency, suddenly the space becomes very beautiful in its form. And to go back to talking about the croissants, some of our garnishes are maybe elaborate and for design, but really, when we think about designing a new pastry, we think about the eating experience. And when someone takes a bite, are they going to get a little bit of each element? How do they work with each other? What's the flavor? What's the experience? So it's really...
So it's not about the
physical or
the beauty
visual
of it.
No, it's about the whole experience of eating it. And I think, I've got a team now at Lune of nearly 300 people. We've got an executive team of 15 people. And we all every day come to work thinking, is there something that we can be doing better? Really applying that engineering mindset and giving everyone in the organisation the agency to impact positively the business if they have an idea. And I think this is a nice full circle moment. That's coming back to the opposite of my experience of working in Formula One.
So teamwork, proper teamwork.
Yeah, if a kitchen hand comes up to us and says, this job that you've had me doing for the past 3 weeks, I actually think there's a more efficient way we can do it, or a better way, or a cheaper way without affecting the product quality. We allow them to present to us, tell us how you're going to test it, what you're going to look for, and if you can prove that it is better, then that will become the new process.
So give them an opportunity. Do you do collabs with people like Messina, etc.?
We do. Yeah.
Have you doing one with Nick at Messina?
We haven't done a Messina one yet, but now he's got shadow baking. I'm sure the idea of him
Just down the road here.
I love shadow baking as well. They and also Flo, who's one of the owners, did a couple of years with us, and he's an incredible pastry chef. So to have him at the helm is...
But it's a different type of pastry what they do at Shadow.
No, they do croissant pastry as well.
Do they do croissants there?
Yeah.
I seem to recall they got breads and like yours is really just not
No,
just.
it's just. I think we might be the only business in the world that I know of that every product on our counter is made from croissant pastry.
Yeah,
we don't have a donut or a brioche or a cookie. It's all croissants, and that was very thought out and specific on my behalf, because when I came back from France and I did my obsessive bakery tour, I learned that there were 3 types of bakeries. Pastries were good and bread was average, or bread was good and pastries were average, or everything was average. And if I was going to start a business, I only wanted everything to be the best that it could possibly be on the counter. And bread and croissants require very different environments for them to be made the best way possible. And I had like a 20 square meter kitchen, and I'd fallen in love with the croissant in Paris anyway. I already knew that was the one that I wanted to innovate and to try and perfect.
I love bread. Can you fall in love with bread and make really good bread? Because I really love bread. I just love bread. I mean, I
love bread and butter, or bread and olive oil.
Bread and oil for me, but I love
Greek olive oil.
Yeah, Greek. Oh, not from Greece, but actually, if it's from Greece, I got one particular olive oil I love from Greece. It's called wild olive, and it actually comes from wild olive trees in Greece. And I know that Evan Caraventis, who imports, or he produced it. He's Australian from Melbourne, actually, But I do think Australian olive oil is some of the best olive oil in the world. In fact, we're just about to do a testing process of olive oils.
I'll be around sometime next week. I'm willing to help out. Good bread and olive oil.
But you just on things like bread, would you consider going into other areas outside of croissants? That's a request.
No, it's actually not a question. It's a request.
Yeah.
There are some things that I've come across in the last few years. Actually, I've already done it. Not bread, but I went to New York for the first time in 2017, a year after the New York Times had written the article that really made Lune globally famous.
And congratulations on that, because that's pretty hard to get.
Yeah, it was really like a mop me up from the floor from my puddle that I've just melted because the New York Times have written about Lune. And I had dinner with the journalist who wrote the article, and he said, if you eat anything in New York, you have to go to Daily Provisions and have a cruller or a cruller. I'm not 100% sure of the pronunciation. It's choux pastry, like normally what a profiterole or an eclair would be, but it's piped with a star nozzle in a ring like a donut, and it's deep fried. And honestly, I went to Daily Provisions the next day and I ordered a maple glazed cruller, and my life was changed. Similar to that moment of having a croissant for the first time in Paris.
Oh, I can see another business.
Yeah, it's happening.
You, you're doing it.
So no, in 2021, Cam and I...
You're doing it already?
We opened Moon.
Wow.
So it's like Lune's little sister.
I've seen Lune, but I haven't seen Moon.
So Moon only operates on a Saturday and Sunday out where our office is in Melbourne at the moment, but we're getting ready to open its first ever permanent store in the city. And I also haven't really seen a business that just specialises in crullers. And a lot of...
Spell a cruller. I've never heard of a cruller.
Cruller.
Okay, I'm going to be looking out for that.
If you come to Melbourne, meet me. I'll meet you at Moon.
Awesome.
They're like one fresh out of the fryer with the vanilla glaze on it it's like childhood levels of excitement and happiness.
I love that.
It's pretty good.
I love that.
Yeah.
So it just let's round it all off. If talk about full circle, round it off full circle. Has anyone ever reached out to you and said, "Hey, Kate, I'm a pastry chef and I'm only 19 years of age and I live in London and I'd love to come and work for your great business, Lune. Have you had that experience yet?
Yeah, countless times.
Oh, really?
And there have been several people that we've welcomed into Lune and they've done stages. And there have been some people that have come and done a few weeks and they've loved it so much that they've stayed on and worked for us. It does feel like a pay it forward, or maybe it's pay it back.
Pay it forward.
Kind of.
Forward. Yeah, I think I say pay it
Yeah.
forward, yeah.
I'm incredibly grateful to the opportunity that Christophe gave me, because that month in Paris really defined for me that turning point in my illness where I got that new thing to latch onto and that obsession that pulled me out of the anorexia and gave me something very hopeful to work towards again.
And you're well, completely well now? Or do you have to still manage this?
Yeah, I think eating disorders are kind of like maybe alcoholism, where you reach a point of sobriety, but then you're constantly required to manage that. There have been moments in the last 15 years where I dip into a very stressful period, and I start to go down that path of using eating and exercise to control, but I can catch myself. And like now I know it. I know I can sense when it's coming, and I just have to put mechanisms in place to look after myself. But yeah, it's a there's once you've had an eating disorder, you'll never not have an eating disorder. But I do enjoy food again.
And I'd love you to comment on this if you wouldn't mind. But everyone sort of freaks out about obsession or having obsessive characteristics. But maybe you could just give a commentary on this one last thing. If you understand, this is obsession approaching me now, and I'm going to use obsession to get this outcome. But when I've got there, when I've got that outcome, I'm going to put it in a box and just park it over there and grab it again when I need it. In other words, using the emotion to your benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you feel as though you're able to do? And if so, how important is that for you to be successful? Because you've been successful in everything you've done, including overcoming obsession.
It is crucial to me. I think it's my superpower. And from having the eating disorder, I can now spot when I use obsession in a negative way. And as I said, I can catch it and that can be in multiple forms. But I don't think I would have had success without that very strong personality trait. Yeah, it's been 100% crucial to making me who I am.
Therefore, people who worry about having obsessive, it's only a disorder when you can't control it.
Yep.
So therefore, if you can recognize that trait within yourself and harness it.
It's actually, there's this one perfect way I can sum it up.
Yep.
Based on being very vulnerable about the eating disorder, I have a lot of people, whether it be parents or people who are suffering from one themselves, reaching out. And I learned when I was going through it that it's very important not to say the wrong person to someone suffering from an eating disorder, because it can set them back significantly. And now the one thing that I say, which I 100% believe, if we are stubborn and determined and strong enough and obsessive enough to get us that sick, to like restrict like daily human need of food, then we are strong enough to get ourselves out of it.
And do anything else.
So,
in other words, and I think it's a good place to finish this off, Kate, is that thing that got you into the hole is actually a superpower if you know how to manage it.
And it's probably the thing that got me out of the hole again.
And got you to where you are now.
Yep.
In terms of your success.
Yes, absolutely.
Kate, Reid, thanks very much. That was awesome.
Thank you.